Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Presents Elements of Horror. I'm Shawn,
I'm Missy.
And I'm John.
and John, thank you for joining us once again. At this point, I would just like to say, John Trafton, you are, whether you want to be or not, you are a member. So you're in the club.
Yeah.
You're in whenever you want.
I got a members only jacket that I'm shipping to you, and it'll have our colors on the back.
Is it like a vest, like a motorcycle gang vest that if I need to fight somebody, I have to take it off?
You know, it can be. All I got to do is take shears to the sleeves, and you got a vest, buddy. So that's
Sweet.
I'll be unboxing the package before I ship it and making that alteration. So no, but seriously,
Oh,
John,
that's so metal.
we we love we love you, and we love having you here. And I'm sorry. So this episode, this is your pick this week, and it got pushed a couple times, and so just thank you for thank everybody for just dealing with me while I'm going, nothing bad, just removing my parents, and it's just been it's been a thing. So
It's all good. It's been a crazy last few weeks for me as well. But I before we talk about any films that we watch, I just want to say, yeah, super stoked. You know, like actually, getting to meet in person a few weeks ago, and
yeah,
having a couple beers, like and seeing you, meeting Ray, and seeing some really good flicks. And I've been listening to the recap of Beyond Fest, and I am really excited for the where evil lurks, and just sort of hoping that catches on in the rest of the country, and like just slowly kind of starts to get a following.
so it was here in Clarksville for 2 fucking weeks.
It was here too.
Yeah, but Chicago I expected. Clarksville I didn't, and it was here for 2 weeks. I saw it. I got tickets multiple times, and then kept having to cancel because shit would come up with my parents and stuff. I was like, oh fuck. We finally saw it. I don't like a week ago Monday or something. I don't know, but it totally held up, obviously. But it hits Shutter tomorrow,
Yeah.
and I would like to maybe give it a week or two, and then like do like a discussion on that and
Okay.
Damien Rugna's other film, Terrified, which I enjoy, but just the level up for When Evil. I mean, oh my God, it's wow, it's something to behold. So yeah, it was great. It was great meeting in person. And hey, your book, is your book out? So I pre-ordered. I haven't got it yet. That's not a complaint. I know it's it's a
Oh
small
yeah.
press.
We had a couple readings recently, a few in LA, one in Orange County, and yeah, they've been packed, and
That's awesome.
That's
like
awesome.
it's been selling really well, and just like it's super nice to meet, cheers to everyone who came out to these events, and got to meet a couple of like really interesting people. And yeah, it's just been kind of nice to see how people have responded. We've got like another one coming up in Orange County this weekend, and then after that, then I can kind of finally take a breather from all of this, and move on to my next project.
You were just recently interviewed on another podcast?
I was Doug Hess's Forgotten Hollywood, and this was
That's it.
and he's very good about getting in touch with academic film writers before their books come out. That I not only want to plug his podcast so that people listen to the episode where I'm on talking about my book, but there's also another episode, and I forget the name of the guy who's on it. I think he's from Toronto, maybe, but he has the guy that he interviews has a book out recently about Roger Corman, and especially in particular Roger Corman's adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe novels, and it's a really solid episode. I ordered that book. I'm really excited to be reading that.
Oh wow, that sounds
That's so
fantastic.
cool.
All right. Oh man. Okay. So what's the name of that podcast again?
Forgotten Hollywood.
That's it, Forgotten Hollywood. Okay, very cool.
And when I get done with the book that I'm currently on, Shawn, I'm going to be reading yours.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
I'm like so excited for that one.
I'm hoping by the beginning of the year, I'll have my new one done. It's been hovering at about 85%, but it's, again, my mind is being pulled in so many different directions that it's just, it's like if I get an hour of writing in where it's like, I'll go to write, but a lot of times it's like, there's just open loops. I need loops to close so that I can get my focus back. So that's that. John, it's your pick. Tell us what you picked and why you picked it.
All right, so I picked a film that I consider a true masterpiece. It's not officially categorized as a horror film, but it is. Let's not kid ourselves about this one. I'm talking about Nicolas Roeg's Don't Look Now from 1973, starring Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland. A true film about grief, if there ever was one. This is a filmmaker who's inspired. If you're a fan of Steven Soderbergh or Danny Boyle, you will be a fan of Nicolas Roeg. And I've been a Nicolas Roeg fan for many, many years, since I first saw Walkabout in the 90s and had just my mind thoroughly blown away by that film. And then I was like, I need to learn more about this guy. Like Shawn, I'm a huge David Bowie fan. So, of course, I couldn't wait to watch one of his other films, a film called The Man Who Fell to Earth. And then a few years later, when I was in my early 20s, I discovered Don't Look Now, watched it, and could not stop thinking about it for weeks. And the same is going to be true this time around. This is a film about grief that really is kind of the godfather of films such as Hereditary and Midsummer, in terms of familial trauma and stuff cycling on. It is a gothic story. This is a film that last thing I'm going to say here is that this is a film that does not need elaborate mise en scène to give you the chills. It's not like, giallo or German expressionist cinema. There are films that are like inspired by those movements, where the production design is a character in itself. This is a film where camera movements and the editing mimic the way that our mind thinks. This guy understands how to mimic the human imagination and memory pictorially. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm just curious. Missy, is this the first time you've seen this film?
It is.
And
I've
Shawn?
never seen anything by Nicolas Roeg.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. I'm so happy that you watched this film, and be sure to check out those others. Shawn, I don't even really need to ask if you've seen The Man Who Fell to Earth, but is this your first time seeing a Don't Look Now?
No, actually, Don't Look Now was one I was only vaguely aware of up until a couple years ago. It was on Shudder for like a month. I want to say this is like 2019. And I think we briefly talked about it on one of the earlier episodes of this show. And so I love The Man Who Fell to Earth, but I like Walkabout. I'd heard, I still need to see that. I haven't seen that, but this, I like, didn't really know what it was. And yeah, man, I don't know. Everything you just said just actually opened a whole new, so this is only the second time I've seen it. And we've got a couple years in between. Well, more than a couple, but a few. And I remembered it very, like, a lot of movies go in the eyes and fall out the ears or whatever. Like, I can watch a movie sometimes and wake up the next day and be like, huh? It's not this movie. I found I remembered it extremely well. And that's really interesting what you said about how Nicolas Roeg knows how to imitate our thoughts, our imagination, our memories, because I wonder if that's one of the reasons why it's like written in the same code as our brains. So I don't know. Wow. I mean, just everything you just said gave me chills. It's got me thinking about this movie in a completely new light. So, wow.
Yeah, can we talk about, like, just as an example, for the viewers, or actually, at this stage, should we just give a spoiler declaration, or
Yeah.
should we
So as with all elements of horror, I'm just going to say right now to the listeners, and I feel like especially for this movie, turn this off if you have not seen it. Go watch it. It's available. The only place I know it's available right now, it's a $2.99 or $3.99 rental on Prime. It's worth it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So turn this off, go watch it, then come back, because we are talking. There's no way to talk about this movie without talking about spoilers, because otherwise it's what you see on the surface is not what you at the end. You're like, oh shit, nothing I saw is what I thought it was. So it takes that last piece of the puzzle to unlock everything you saw before it, which is one of the things I love. So yeah, so John, just jump in.
Yeah. Okay. So John Baxter, he's played by Donald Sutherland. He and his wife Laura, they live in England. They're just getting ready to move to Venice because John is a professor of medieval history, specializing in the Italian Renaissance, and he's about to be involved in a restoration project on a cathedral. And while preparing his notes and looking over some of the images, meanwhile, outside, his daughter and son play outdoors, and the daughter drowns. He has this premonition that something wrong is happening. And the whole while, we're getting this cross cutting
Yeah.
and we cut to shots don't that don't make logical sense on paper, but when we think about them in terms of the way our mind recalls images, or the way our mind records images or imagine things in a particular moment, not only does it make perfect sense, it puts you in that moment and it twists your heart in just such a profound way. And he rushes outside, pulls his daughter out of a pond, and it's all slow motion, the slow motion scream. And it's when you go to film school and as an undergrad, and you take a class in film history, you take a class in film aesthetics, and you learn about editing. One of the people that unavoidable, you cannot pass without learning about is Sergei Eisenstein, and Russian filmmaker, and his theory of montage, and about how what is often referred to as 1+1 = 3. You take one image, put it next to another image, and it says something that is neither of those two things, because it's all about subjective experience, the way images are juxtaposed. It's a thing that sets film apart from novels, stage plays, paintings, and still photography. And he takes the lessons from Eisenstein, and he doesn't copy Eisenstein or pay homage to Eisenstein in the way that people like Coppola and Brian De Palma do. He takes Eisenstein's ideas of montage and makes it his own language that's purely very subjective, but it's not impenetrable. You're not looking at something that is difficult to decipher. You're not watching, late Godard. You're not watching you're not as much. I love David Lynch, but you're not. This isn't David Lynch,
Right.
This isn't a difficult thing to decipher, but this is something. This is a world that you're meant to get lost in, and things connect in a very loose manner. And that's really and that whole first 10 minutes, I show my students that whenever I teach horror, and they just crumple up, and then then I show them some other things from some other films and to kind of shock them out of it. But this is a film that it's a roller coaster ride of emotions, and horror is an emotional language par excellence, and that's just really where I'm at with this film and why I recommended it. There was like a whole bunch of different directions I could go with my recommendation, but the choice just seems so obvious.
I'm glad that it was. I'm glad that we picked this. Uh, Missy, talk about Don't Look Now. Anything, reaction,
Okay.
interpretation.
Well, okay. Well, actually, a lot of what John was just saying has opened up like how I feel about it a bit, because I had a hard time with it. I watched it twice. The Because the first time I faded out a little bit at the end and I missed some things, but when I went back and watched it a second time, um, I picked up a lot more throughout the whole thing. It I think what I really have a hard time with is the pacing. The story is good. The performances are fantastic. I like what they're doing with the camera. Um, and the payoff at the end is very good. But it just, there are points where it feels really long and draggy to me. Where I kind of had a hard time sticking with it. I think Donald Sutherland gave a fantastic performance. Um, what I really do like though is the when we do get to see his visions and we see where reality is like kind of blurring. I really do like how Nicolas Roeg did that. And now, I mean, the the red robe figure. The the first time I watched it, I didn't catch that red robe figure was in the slide in the beginning. I thought he spilled something. I thought he spilled like paint or something on it. Um, the second time I watched it, I caught it. And then with the way it plays out at the end, now I'm wondering if he kept seeing his daughter in the red coat running around the city, but was he ever seeing her, or was he always seeing the red robe figure, the killer?
It's the well. Oh, see, now that's a really good question because watching it the first time, you don't know that some of the shit that he's seen. Like the best example is his wife leaves to go be with the son, and then he sees her on the boat with the two women,
Right.
and you already think that the women are like witches or some. There's a
Mm-hmm.
definite intimation that there's something nefarious with them. You have no idea that he's seeing into the future. He's having a vision, right? And so you realize at the end, like, oh shit, of course he's been having them all along. And some of what we're seeing
Mm-hmm.
are like interstitials in reality. They're not real. So I had assumed based on everything that he was seeing the murderer, just thinking it was his daughter, but now I don't know. John, what do you think? Do you think there's a definitive interpretation, or what's your interpretation?
I think this is I could be wrong about this, but it it's if Nicolas Roeg is using his style to mimic our psychology as a way to kind of break the audience down and kind of just send them off into an abyss, then he's kind of deploying the uncanny here. And Freud's the uncanny. And Freud's the uncanny is like where something is familiar made strange, but it implies like this constant return, this idea of constant return, like we're constantly being brought back to the original trauma through the presence of this red cloaked figure with the daughter, and seeing Laura on the boat with the two clairvoyants is part and parcel of that. And I think, and that's why when I look at the description of this film and it says psychological thriller or psychological drama, I say no, this is a horror film, because if there's it's like Kubrick famously said, you know, if the horror film needed any justification, like the presence of the uncanny would just alone serve its justification and for its credentials. So, you know, that I'm just sort of seeing like Rogue, like taking, basically kind of making a little bit of a subtle statement about like why we find those kind of occurrences in our own life creepy, you know, and like putting us in our position. Like, what if you lost something very dear to you, and if there was haunting, if there were ghosts in the world that were haunting you in this sort of gothic sense, this is how, in a realistic scenario, how it would probably play out.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be, you know, figure like these ethereal figures and sheets, you know, that are coming, you know, through your wall. It's going to be shit like this.
Right. That makes sense.
So that's interesting. Man, this movie. So the thing about this movie, the first time I saw it, and I still feel this way, but what really, because again, the first time you're seeing it, it's happening to you, right? So you're just going with it. When it ends, I had this weird like feeling that, okay, let's take any two movies, right? Let's just take Suspiria and Call Me by Your Name, which I just realized I wasn't even thinking of Guadagnino's Suspiria, so I literally pulled those without even realizing.
There you go.
Okay.
That's the uncanny.
That's the
right there.
uncanny, but
The uncanny is you reached for a book and you open it and you land on the page you were intending to look for.
yes. So any movies, this is, you know, one movie is this universe and another movie is this universe. We're not talking about now everything is like shared universe. That's not what we're talking about. So in fact, let me
No.
change it so it's not by, let's say the original Suspiria and Ordinary People.
Interesting.
They're totally, you know, they're just two different universes. They're two different lives happening on other sides of the planet. There's no connection, but they're happening concurrently. The thing about this movie, it's almost as if there's a giallo going on that's a separate movie, and then there's this movie about these people, and at the end they fucking intersect, and that was what blew me away. I was like, oh my god, like, because you get little bits of like the murder and this and that, like there's news references or people talking about these murders, but they are in no way even a B plot, really. Like it's just a little bit of window dressing, you know. I mean, so I mean, that is one of the most shocking fucking endings, I swear to God. And I feel like I don't want to oversell it, but holy shit, do you not see that shit coming at all? And it also has nothing to do with anything else. It doesn't have anything to do with the clairvoyant women. It doesn't have anything to do with his visions. It doesn't have anything to do with his grief or his daughter dying. It's just something that's happening in the background, and he runs into it because he's chasing the uncanny. It's and like you said, that's life. That's how the uncanny happens. Like you brush up against shit. There's especially when I can remember being really, really, really into the occult the first time I went to Ireland. And some really weird shit happened. And there was this moment where this woman walked up to my friends and I, apropos of absolutely fucking nothing. But we had just, not maliciously, but there was this is a whole thing. But we were staying at this old woman's bed and breakfast. She was this really nice old woman. It was in Drumcondra, which is a suburb of Dublin. I had been basically abducted by some people, and then like I don't even know how I found my way back. Whatever. I lost the key, and I lied to her because I was terrified of telling her I had lost her key, because whatever. So it's like the next day, and this woman just was a totally random woman, never saw her before, never saw her again, walked up to us on the street and said, "Don't tell lies, boys," and then just kept going. And I was like, what the fuck was that? So that was a messenger of that was the uncanny, right? That was when you're tapped into a certain frequency, you're tapped into it. And so, it's like the famous saying, like, you can shine a light in the dark and you can see a little bit, but now also everything in the dark that surrounds you can see you. And that's this movie, man. Wow.
You say that Suspiria and Ordinary People are not part of a shared universe, and that might be true, and that might be true, but Ordinary People and Don't Look Now probably are.
Okay, fair. Yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
I think
I
that's why
mean,
it came to mind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, also known as the uncanny.
Yeah.
But Shawn, I like your adjacent to Giallo theory, and it like as far as the killer goes, like blink and you miss it, because
Yeah.
the first time I watched it, I completely misinterpreted the ending because I think I faded out for like 5 minutes and I missed the killer. I saw it and then the camera starts spinning. So I thought that he had died when he fell the first time and that
Mhm.
everything else was um
Oh, like
had
a
not
Sixth
really
Sense
happened.
kind of thing. Okay.
Uh-huh. And then when I watched it again, and then he gets stabbed by this, he's chasing the little girl. And the first time, like, again, I must have faded out for like a second because I remember seeing the scene with him chasing the little girl, but then I didn't see the killer. Um, so when I watched it the second time and caught the proper ending, like, I do like that better, that it was, that he got, that it wasn't like his synapses firing as he died, like that it was just he was chasing the in between and then
Yeah.
random curveball.
I mean, and everything about the killer is 100% fucking Argento, primary
It's like
color,
a
right? And then also like
it's like a weird old lady mask
or
or
like a
something.
deformed dwarf or something. I mean, it totally brings to mind the color scheme of Suspiria and the fucking killer in
Uh-huh.
Phenomena. That's that like kind of like fucked up looking little boy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So and then it's just that moment and then it's gone. And
Right.
it's like, okay. Yeah, man.
And when that happened, that's when I realized that that it was there all along because it's in the slide from the beginning.
So I didn't realize that. So I know the scene you're talking about where he spills whatever, but so the like the red jacket is
Uh-huh.
actually
The red cloaked figure is in the slide. I
that's
didn't
fucking
catch it till the
crazy.
second time around. He spills the water, and then the red from the cloak is what goes over
Oh.
the slide. Um, Initially, I thought that when he spilled the water, that he also spilled paint, but
Yeah, I
that
think that's what I
was in the
thought.
slide, and I didn't catch it until I saw the old lady dwarf killer, whatever, at the end with the red coat, and then I realized that it was there from the beginning.
Dude, what is a killer's story? Like, I just want to know. I know we'll never know. I want to know.
Right?
I want to know.
It's so weird and random. I mean that, and I like that. I like that it's weird and random.
I feel like it's a shame that I think the thing that is most well known about this movie, and I think John, you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I was I'm waiting for it, and I'm looking forward to
Is it
talking
the
about
weird
this.
sex scene?
Yeah,
Yep.
because it's always been like the first time I ever heard this movie mentioned, it was the fact that it has long been a theory that is actual sex between, and when you see it, I mean, I'm not going to say that I believe it, but I don't disbelieve it at all because
Mm.
it is, and it's the fucking 70s, right? I mean, like seriously, I don't know, John. How do you feel about that? Or
Yeah, I think this is the greatest sex scene in film history. And I always tell people that, and I always tell people that I'm not saying that to be crass. I'm saying that because it totally earns this film earns it. Like I
Yes.
think, in any other film, it wouldn't feel earned. It would just totally stick out. And in some ways it does stick out, but it feels earned when you consider the emotional content, and you kind of get the sense like, this is, people that are really desperately trying to cling for some semblance of normality and trying to like claw back what they once had that and has now been torn apart from them.
Yeah.
There's this one, I forget who the critic is, but he was talking about Nicolas Roeg. I think this was an essay for Walkabout, not for Don't Look Now. And he was showing but he was talking about how he showed Don't Look Now to a group of students, they're ESL students, and they were just sort of new to film, and they were writing down their impressions of the scene. And when it came to that scene, they wrote down, two people try to make a baby. And I'm like, when I read that, I was like, yeah, that's I'd say that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
This isn't, this isn't, some kind of like, early 90s softcore porn. This is like emotionally charged, but different than when you hear the words emotionally charged,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
I like that you said that, because I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, Missy, what was your take on that?
I mean, it. I read something that that was actually the first time that Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie were meeting too. Like, it was the
Yeah.
first day they were there, and they had to shoot that.
Holy
Mhm.
shit.
That's
And she
common.
was terrified. That's what I read. I think on IMDb. But
Yeah.
I don't know, the like I like the way it was filmed, but the score kind of threw me off. It was like this weird happy music in the middle of all this grief. I didn't even think of it as, and what you said before is they probably are just trying to make another baby, but it just felt kind of long and out of place. I'm getting more from the movie talking to you guys now, but I had some kind of disconnect with it.
Well, I mean, I definitely think so. It is a different pacing. And, so I always go, this is the example I always use for this, because this has come up on the show before, where, so I love Mervyn Peake's Gormenghast novels. But if I'm going to read Mervyn Peake, I can't go from anything modern. I mean, by modern, I mean within the last 30 fucking years at least, if not 40. And then go into Gormenghast, because it's just
Okay.
it is just a completely different tone, pace, everything. It's not that I don't appreciate it, but it's, it would be like, it's like, I don't know. I mean, everything now, and increasingly over the last decades, like things just get quicker and quicker. And so in order, you kind of have to like work backwards a bit, I feel like. And I forget what I watched before this, but this time, but it was not something like punchy and newer, because I knew like, okay, I'm going to watch that, so I need to like step back from a more modern vibe. I don't know if this makes sense, but
It does. I mean, when both times I watched it, it was the first movie I watched. Like,
okay.
I put it on in the afternoon on a Sunday.
But I mean, what had you been watching in the days leading up to it? That's, I don't mean that day per se, but
Oh,
that's kind
since
of where.
October, I've been watching all kinds of horror.
So that's the thing. Like, I feel
And
like,
afterwards, I followed it with Deathgasm.
so I feel like, you know, there to me, and this is gonna now I'm gonna totally sound like some like I'm just gonna sound cunty, but like if I'm gonna read Hemingway, usually my time for Hemingway is like the winter where it's slow and cold. I got a cup of coffee and some jazz on, like Coltrane, Blue Train, or something like that. That's where I can like if I just go pick up Hemingway right now, it's a 50-50 shot if it's just gonna drive me nuts. So I feel like there's an element of that because it's just a different pacing and it's very deliberate and it literally just doesn't care what anybody thinks about it at all. Like things are edited now, whether it's literature or movies or whatever, they're edited in a punchier fashion and it just gets faster and punchier as time, goes on. And this is like, no, not doing that. This is going to breathe. That so also I think who did the music is Pino Donaggio, who's now come up multiple
Yeah,
times.
I noticed.
And
I did catch that.
This movie, and here's a funny story. I actually had the soundtrack to this on vinyl before I'd ever seen the movie
Really?
because
Why?
I was part of the Waxworks Records for a couple years. They did like an annual like record subscription. You got 5 records and they do mostly soundtracks and a lot of, especially back then, it was a lot of classic stuff. So this was one of them. So I had no idea what the movie was, and I put it on, and that was the first time. Like I was like, what the fuck? And I actually gave it to my boss because I didn't know the movie and I knew he was a fan. So I was like, dude, he had just bought a record player. I'm like, you know what? I think you'll get more out of this now. I kind of wish I had it, but I really like Pino Donaggio's music in this movie for this movie. And that scene, especially, I think it works very well because those are people clinging. They're not just, I don't think they're just trying to make a baby. They're just trying. I mean, look,
To feel alive?
they're trying to feel alive, but also like a common thing that destroys a marriage or a relationship is the loss of a child because you might love that person, but you look at them and you think of what you lost. So you just have to move on, right? So they're desperately trying not to do that. And it's a very tender, and I think that's why it breathes and is so prolonged, is because it's not like it's literally in the parlance of our times. They're not fucking, they're making love. Like they're they're trying to tap into what they had before. So I don't know. That was a long-winded way of talking about what is, I would agree, it's the best love scene I've ever, by far, and it's totally earned.
And you notice that it'll cut from like them having sex to them like getting dressed afterward to go out for the evening.
Yes.
And then back again, and then back again, back
again. And there's that what you were talking about, that technique that he's using where it's like you're almost always in 2 places at once because I feel like a lot of us are, right? So past and present and future kind of become one. And then when you marry that to the idea that he's clairvoyant or having images, it's like it's anybody's bet. Everything you're seeing, like, is it happening now? Did it already happen? And I don't know.
Have either of you seen Steven Soderbergh's The Limey?
No.
Yeah, check out Steven Soderbergh's The Limey when you get a chance. It's the only Soderbergh film that I kind of like, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah, Steven Soderbergh's The Limey is that, but on steroids.
Ooh, okay. I've always wanted to see it. It's been on my prime queue for.
It's good. It's really, I think it's really good. The rest of his films, I'm not that. Actually, that's not true. I like Out of Sight.
I see. Oh, is that the one with is it Sean Penn and Jennifer Lopez?
It's George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez, and that film is also very much inspired by Nicolas Roeg as well. So yeah, I like both of those 2 films. Soderbergh's other films, I'm not crazy about.
I didn't realize he did either of those fucking movies. That dude, he has got, I would love to see a retrospective of his career because he has had some, I mean, I don't want to go off on a too much of a tangent, but it's like, I feel like every couple months I find out another movie that I've heard of or have known about for decades as a Soderbergh movie. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, this guy just like jumps from one to the next. He's very, very prolific, and which can have sometimes it's not a the band that puts out 3 albums a year as opposed to one every two. Well, are all three of those records going to be as are they going to be good?
Mhm.
Maybe, maybe
Mhm.
not. Man, this is it's just such a Don't Look Now is just I don't know. It is really it's really great. I guess it's what now if this came out now it would be considered elevated horror or whatever. And I had never even thought of what you said, John, like 100% Hereditary and A Midsummer come from the soil that this, you know, rose from. I mean, there's no doubt.
Yeah, this film walked so that Hereditary could run.
Yeah, well said.
Okay, I can see that.
You know, it's written by Daphne du Maurier, if I'm saying that correctly. I think I am.
Daphne du Maurier.
Mornier,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I inadvertently had a little Daphne du Maurier film fest here recently because, well, Rebecca I did not see recently, but it's in recent memory. But I just saw The Birds on the big screen 3 nights ago, and that's
Nice.
also based on her. But yeah, like, have you read the? I don't know if it's a novel or a short story. Don't Look Now.
I haven't read. I mean, I've read Rebecca. I haven't read any
Okay.
Daphne du Maurier books apart from that. Yeah, no, and I definitely haven't read this one.
How is Rebecca?
I mean, it's great, and I think to be honest, I think it's one of Alfred Hitchcock's underappreciated films.
Man, I did not like. I just saw that for the first time about 2 years ago. And my girlfriend's got it on DVD and she's been wanting to show it to me, and I did not like it at all. I can't remember now what it was I didn't like about it, other than just in general. I was just like, oh man, it was a struggle. I don't know. I'd have to see it again, which is something I will do because it's odd for me to have that strong of a negative reaction not that I've seen everything Hitchcock's ever done, but like I don't know everything about that. I just thought it would be a win-win, and it just didn't. And then what's his nuts?
It's all good.
Wheatley just did a remake with Army Hammer a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Uh, I liked that more,
Hmm.
but I don't know. That's another
I actually didn't see it.
another very interesting filmmaker. This like Ben Wheatley. It's like Kill List, Rebecca, Meg 2. Just like what the fuck? So odd. Um I I'm also realizing as you were describing so John Sutherland's character John Baxter being about to do this restoration on this chapel. Interestingly enough, I also did like a double feature of movies about people restoring chapels because I just watched Mikhail Sovi's The Church the other night. Totally different movie. But actually, like, interestingly enough, there are similar mechanics happening with some of the characters where they're on the scaffold or whatever. Man, how about and Don't Look Now, the scaffold scene is
That
Oh
scene
harrowing.
is
yeah.
awesome and
Like,
scary.
Yeah. And he had to have done that several times because it's a montage. He's cut from so many different angles, and you have to remember back then they're shooting on film,
yep.
and moving to a different angle and doing a new light setup could take
Mhm.
upwards of an hour. So I don't even know how many scaffolds they broke and how many times he fell.
And that scene maybe more than anything, when you were describing the kind of interstitial memory imagination, that scene is another prolonged scene, but I almost feel like you're seeing what's happening, and you're seeing like his fear of what's happening, and you're seeing other people's interpretations of what's happening, because the angles feel like it's different points of view in a way. I don't know. I think that might be my favorite, other than the ending. I think that might be my favorite scene in the movie. It's executed so well, and like you said, shot on film in the fucking 70s. Like, I'm looking at it going, how long did it take to? I don't know how many days this. Like, I know nothing about this movie. Is there anything that you've read that you could recommend that's like a critical or academic like discussion on this?
Um, Not particularly, other than if people are interested in this film and they watch it, they like it, and they wouldn't mind having it for the collection, do not, just splash out if you can and get the Criterion Collection Blu-ray. It came out like a few years back, and actually they just updated it pretty recently, and it has like a lot of the essays on it, and some of the special features on it are worth diving into. As far as like actual text on like Rogue's Don't Look Now, it's like, I guess I could talk about, some work on British cinema, and stuff that other critics have done, but I just say dive into this film for yourself. I mean, well, you've already dove into this film if you've been listening to this podcast thus far, or you just don't give a shit. But I would also recommend, watch Walkabout as well. In some ways it's kind of dated, but in some ways it's this style, but like really even more experimental, and it'll get you inside the head of the way Nicolas Roeg works.
I know a lot of people that hold that film in high regards. Yourself, Anthony, from this show is holds it in very high regard. A couple friends that I have back in Chicago hold it in very high regard. And it's one of those, I've just never seen it. So I definitely feel like now would be the time to do that. For the listeners, I just happen to look on, I need to get in the habit of checking sites like Diabolic DVD instead of just going right to Amazon. On Amazon, the Blu-ray, not the 4K. The 4K is $34.99. The Blu-ray is $27.99. That's on Amazon. Let's see if I don't know if Diabolic DVD will carry. Yes, they have it. It looks like the same prices. So I would say get it from Diabolic DVD, and support them instead of fucking Jeff Bezos. But I will eventually buy this, because this is a movie, even though I don't think I would visit it, I think even annually, not that it couldn't happen, but it wouldn't be one where I'm like, I have to watch it every year. However, I would like to have it, and I'd like to have it in like a Blu-ray, where I know the transfer is good and Criterion it's going to be. And I'd like to have the extras, the academic stuff, because I feel like just hearing you talk about it, I don't know, there's just a lot here. There's a lot here. And it's a movie that it doesn't shout at you. You have to kind of approach it and be ready to listen for the whispers. And then you will learn its secrets. That sounds a little mysterious.
Okay.
No, that's so well said, Shawn.
No, that's really well said.
No, it's true. It's true. It's sucked in by the whispers, where it's like The Shining leads you into its maze, whereas Don't Look Now whispers to you. I love it.
I mean, and as much as I love The Shining, I've always understood Stephen King's dislike of it, because that movie starts in the moment you see Jack Nicholson, you hear that, Wendy? He heard about it on the television. He does the thing with his eyes, and you're like, dude, you're already fucking nuts. So like, there you go. So I've always understood it doesn't matter. I mean, I've read the book and I've watched the I'll take the movie any day. I love the book, but I
I
just
like the book better.
that was one of those movies that taught me to listen, to like sit down and fucking listen to a movie. And I don't know. Anyway, what
I mean,
else?
usually I can listen pretty well and take the ride, but this one talks really softly.
It does.
Because like a lot of the other movies John mentioned, like um, Hereditary and Midsummer and Danny Boyle movies, like I love that stuff. And this one, I don't hate it by any means, and I'm
Right,
glad we
right.
watched it. And talking about it is making it sit better, but it was a weird watch for me.
I have a feeling if you watch it again, and I wouldn't suggest doing it, anytime soon, but I
Yeah.
think so. I have this thing. I know when you describe nodding off, that has ruined multiple movies for me. It ruined Arrival, it ruined Moon. Other those two spring to mind, but and it's not that I fell asleep, it's that I closed my eyes and opened them again and didn't realize I
And
had
didn't know.
lost a passage of the movie. So it just fucked the entire and like Arrival. I'm still that I don't know what year that came out, but I'm still waiting. I want to put like a decade between my last viewing of it because I know I love that fucking movie and it just it so I think the first time you watched it soured it for you because also it would be nowhere near as good a movie if it was just like Jacob's Ladder. Like as much as I love that in Jacob's Ladder, like that's if this movie had done that, it just would not have worked. So I think you eventually, if you see it again, you'll be like, oh, okay, now I have the vibe. So
Mm-hmm. Well, and like what you were talking about with filtering, like I had no idea what I was going to be watching. Like I was not familiar with this director or anything. So I mean, I don't remember what I watched. I know it was the first movie I watched that day, but I mean, and I'll watch all kinds of different horror.
yeah.
But I mean, I think I was coming off of some of the really like the harder stuff I was watching this month,
Mm-hmm.
like some of the heavier ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into this, and this is really slow compared to something like Found.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
gotcha.
oh
Uh,
man.
I would say, yeah, Missy, give yourself like a definitely some time from this and maybe revisit this in a few months.
I will.
Alongside maybe The Man Who Fell to Earth. And another film I forgot to mention. There's he did a film called Bad Timing, which is with Art Garfunkel that is that very twisted as well.
Okay.
So yeah,
Really?
it's like it and if and if at that point you find that it's not your thing, then it's not your thing, and
Yeah.
there's
Right.
totally nothing wrong with that. It's all good.
100%. 100%. Oh God. Did wow, Rogue is also known as a cinematographer as well before he directed. And like Dr. Zhivago, Casino
Yeah,
Royale, the original Lawrence of Arabia second unit. I
Oh
had
wow,
I had no fucking clue.
yeah, totally.
I had no
that's
idea.
And
pretty
it, and
cool.
it, and it, and it makes sense, doesn't it?
It totally, 100%, 100%. I feel like this movie is a bridge between like I feel like what I'm about to say is a little bit missing the point and a little trite, but I feel like maybe it's a bridge between old Hollywood and new Hollywood. Um, because everything I just named, Dr. Zhivago, Lawrence of Arabia, that's all. I mean, Jesus, that's like studio system Hollywood, right? Um, and I guess there's something to be said for the character being an expert in this like Renaissance and like history and going in and restoring, and then Roeg being an expert in camera, like, or in cinema history for, decades before making this movie, and then kind of going in and using that eye to kind of refresh, or I don't know, maybe I'm reaching here, but I think this movie inspires a lot of conversation.
Yeah. Oh no, I
mean,
agree.
it's a good one to talk about. I mean, even though I didn't like fall in love with it, I'm not in any way unhappy that we watched it. Like, I think it was a cool one to discuss.
I agree. What did we miss anything? Closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad I picked it. And that's all I'm gonna say. I think you know, would love to hear, listeners would love to hear your thoughts on it, having listened to it thus far. And yeah, check out some of his other films. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm definitely doing Man That Fell to Earth. So it's been on my brain. I noticed somebody had, I didn't realize this, one of the streaming platforms turn that into a show or
Oh
something.
yeah.
Okay. I don't know anything about that one either.
I have
The Man Who Fell to Earth.
no interest in any like update or revamp of that, but that's his movie with Bowie, where Bowie, like Station to Station, the album comes out of that.
Oh.
It's literally like he plays an alien.
Okay.
But it's been a long time since I if I'm not mistaken, I watched that the first time I saw that and The Last Temptation of Christ in the same night.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember
That
I
a
remember
weird double feature, Shawn.
it was pretty weird.
you're more dangerous than the zealots. Did you know that?
Oh my God. Okay, well, whose turn is next, Missy? Is it you? Anthony. So we're gonna have to find out what he's going to pick. I don't know, but until then, for the Horror Vision, Elements of Horror, I'm Shawn.
I'm Missy.
And I'm John.
And we'll be back soon.
A pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus, MV20, soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Abramelin Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive?
The world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure? Murder. From the twisted mind of Shawn C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires and Shadowplay in Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus. Available where books are sold.